Hello, welcome back to Talk Seagulls, and we're back at the Caxton Arms again, and joined by the guy who actually went to the game the other day in the Players' Lounge, Mr. Royalty. I'm really sorry to be in your presence, my friend. Toby Ball, how are you, mate?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, wasn't weird, but obviously I hadn't been to a game in quite a while, but it was nice. Yeah, it was nice to go.
Nice to be back. Nice to be with the... What's the Players' Lounge like, actually? For those that are listening, obviously won't really know, will they? What's it like?
It's nice. Nice lounge, food, drinks. Pretty casual.
It's not football anymore, is what I hear from the top boys. But no, mate, what a game to come back to.
Yeah.
Well, I can't believe I'm even saying this, that we've beaten Chelsea, because I had a lot of people saying and questioning me. And actually, I think I had someone message me after the game, almost as if I should be gutted. I should be disappointed because, you know, how I put the tweet on after the Forest game. And I still stand by the tweet. I'm not gonna start going all a reaction and saying, no, you know, one game changed everything, right? I'm still want to see more, still want to be proved wrong. But yeah, he's completely right. I was gutted when we won, mate. I didn't even celebrate the goals. And I hated every second of it because, you know, that's how it really works.
Yeah.
It just doesn't, though, does it?
No, not at all. No, it was for Brighton. It was a good game. I mean, I was probably expecting a bit more out of the game. Obviously, when I messaged you after, I was like, it wasn't the most exciting games in terms of shots, but in terms
from a
of
neutral point of view,
it was exciting from there was lots of tackles. You could sort of tell there's starting to get that little bit of that derby feel with Brighton Chelsea whenever they play. But yeah, there's lots of tackles going in. But yeah, in terms of shots on target and things, there wasn't loads. Probably wasn't a lot of quality in the game. There wasn't many moments, but I think a lot of that is again to do with Chelsea. For me, they didn't really do anything. They didn't show me anything. Some of their star players didn't play very well, and I think Brighton just managed it overall. They done well. They had the chances. Took them, and I think it was a fairly comfortable game. What it looked like. But yeah, it wasn't, from a neutral perspective, wasn't the most glamorous of games. There wasn't loads of shots and end to end, but yeah, for Brighton's sake, it was a good result. And I think the main thing with FA Cup is you're into the next round. So, yeah, take that.
No, I think it's probably the best one to have you down for, actually, as a goalkeeper point of view, because you got to get out of the way. It was a really early on, and it was a really, really bad one. And I mean, Bart's struggled a little bit, hasn't he, recently? Obviously had that 7 goals last week, and then you go in your first 5 minutes and you have something like that happen to you. You're thinking, oh my God, please don't happen again, sort of thing. Getting a bit of sticks, you know, some places. I think he's only 21, 22 years old. He's got a really, really big future ahead of him. Obviously, he's done so well for the Netherlands. At Brighton, it's a bit difficult because of, you know, how he likes to play out from the back and try and, you know, put a lot of pressure on him. We tend to expose him quite a bit with empty midfield out, as you've said before. But obviously, that mistake was quite hard to justify, even tactically. I think you would look at that and be disappointed. But obviously, you know, a mistake's a mistake and you forget about it. But what do you think of Bart Verbruggen in general? That sort of moment for him must not have been a nice one.
Yeah, as a goalkeeper, it's always difficult, especially, I think that was probably might have been his first action of the game. It was very early on, and obviously I was sat east upper in the far corner, so you know, sort of where the Chelsea fans going around, we're sort of above there.
Oh yeah.
So obviously complete opposite side. Saw the cross come in, and all of a sudden it's in the goal. You're like, that didn't look great. And then you see it, you see it on the big screen. You're like, not ideal. It was in an awkward area. I'm trying to sort of a bit of sympathy. It's in an awkward area. It's bounced right in front of him. It's a bit slippy surface, so it was like, you can understand, sort of be like, okay, it's probably not as bad as what it looks like, but as a Premier League goalkeeper, you expect us to deal with it. It's not nice coming back from a 7-0 defeat. And a 7-0 defeat where probably none of the goals were probably really his fault, maybe, or he might have wanted to do better, or maybe one or two, but he couldn't do anything about the result.
No.
It's always difficult when you concede 7, you look back and go on flipping it, that is difficult, and you just want to get started into the next game, and then that's your first action. You're like, blimey. But I think he managed himself really well after that. Obviously, it helped. Chelsea didn't put a lot on him, not loads of shots, but he made a couple decent saves with his feet. He looked fairly comfortable. You saw going a little bit longer as well, I think, second half. So, it sort of just settled him down a little bit. Overall, it's difficult. He's still so young. So he's still got a lot of learning to do. But obviously, from a fan's perspective, you want to see that Bart, what he was like playing in the Euros for the Netherlands. You want to see that all the time. But it's a completely different setup. It's a different tournament. It's the Premier League. So, I think fans probably want to see more, and I think you will see more. It's just, it's difficult. He's still really young, a lot of learning to do. Now with Steely out, that sort of experience around like the training group sort of goes away a little bit. Yes, he'll be involved, but not on the training pitch. So it'll be interesting to see how that looks. So yeah, I think from a fan, maybe just want to see a little bit more. But it's difficult. He's a lot of learning. He's still a very good goalkeeper. It's just a shame that happened so early on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, obviously, as you say, the experience doesn't exactly go too far in the goalkeeping ranks for us. I mean, the next one is obviously Carl Rushworth, who's just been taken back. Obviously, he had his promotion up the ranks a little bit, helped with Steele's injury, and now he is pretty much number 2 for us for the rest of this season, probably, unless Steele makes a miraculous recovery. I think
it's 3-4 months, wasn't it? They were sort of saying. So.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he plays again this season, if I'm honest. But Rushworth's got, has he got an opportunity there? Has he got a chance to think, oh, okay, maybe I could be? He was a player of the year at Swansea, he was player of the year at Hull as well at one point. Not Hull, there's another one.
Lincoln, I think it
was. But Worthing as well.
Carl's one of them where he's very experienced. Like, even though he's still very young, he's still a very experienced player. You think he's had
a lot of games.
He's had 3-4 loans where he's played a whole season, and then he's faced different sort of loans. He's faced loans where he's sort of pushing to go up the table. He's faced loans where they're battling relegation. And then he's had a loan at Hull where he's had to deal with an injury and now get back in the side. So I think it will be a really good test and a really good experience for him being around that like Premier League setup and going to Premier League games. And I think he'll back himself to maybe try and go in and push to play. I don't know if the manager will look at that. I think he's sort of stuck with Bart, and I think he will keep sticking with Bart. But if an opportunity is to come up, I think it's a shame for him that he's cup tied.
Yeah,
with the FA Cup, because then it might have been nice to see him play in the FA
really
Cup.
Ironic, isn't it? Having a goalkeeper that's cup tied.
And so that's the only thing they're really like, goodness sake, that would have been nice for him to maybe see in some cup games. But yeah, I think in all, Carl will come in and he'll push and he'll try and compete. I don't see the manager changing it, but you never know. Like if Bart picks up a little injury and he's maybe out for 1 or 2, and Carl does extremely well, it might then put some thoughts in the manager's mind, because it's not like Carl's young. I believe Carl's older than Bart anyway, and probably more experienced in terms of playing first team football. He's probably played more first team football games.
I guess, obviously Verbruggen's obviously played at a much higher level really early on. And he's been sort of associated with big clubs really early on. I think it was Bayern Munich were talking about him, Real Madrid were talking about him. Even when he was coming here, there was talk of even Burnley came to say, but it's still a Premier League side that wanted him at the time. So he's been wanted by really top end clubs for such a long time. And maybe when you have that at such a young age, like we saw with Ferguson, for example, where that big limelight shed on you, and sometimes it can be a little bit of a weight on your own shoulders, and you've created your own pressure from just impressing people all the time. And when you do catch the eye, at big clubs, you're then talked about in the media, and people then associate you as being a wonder kid. And then with the wonder kid status, if you have a bad game, you think, oh, has he even got his potential? So football's really reactionary, as we always know. And I think especially with the goalkeeper, as you'll know better than anybody, when you make them mistakes, yes, obviously it's hard to look past them as fans, and fans would always bring up the mistakes. I remember when Sanchez was here, obviously gets a hard time now, but he gets, they will always be remembered. Matty Ryan was the same. So, you don't want to get yourself into a habit of making too many mistakes. And I don't want to put too much pressure on the guy either, like saying with Rushworth coming in or anything like that. But of course, such is the life of being a goalie. If you do make mistakes, and you could be.
I think it's a goalie as well at Brighton. I think Brighton have always been a side where they don't really give away many chances. I think maybe last season was slightly different, where you're a little bit more open. But Brighton have never been a side where you give away many chances. To actually shine as a goalkeeper, I think can be a little bit tougher in a side like that, because you're not probably called upon as much as maybe other goalkeepers in the league.
Heavy defensive team.
So it's kind of like where they're making lots of saves, and there's a lot of pressure with the ball at their feet, so you're more likely to give the ball away. Whereas, you might go to a different club and maybe they are going a bit direct. You can't really get the pass wrong, or you're making lots of saves because you're in the bottom half of the table. So sometimes at Brighton, as a goalkeeper, it might be difficult to really shine and sort of wow people. So it can be a little bit difficult, and you're defined on real little actions.
Probably defined more on how you play it from the back as well. I think
that's why Steely done so well. Don't get me wrong, Steely's a really good shot stopper, but he's phenomenal with the ball at his feet, and he was rarely getting passes wrong. And I think it really showed that he took on board what De Zerbi was doing, and I think executed it superbly. That's why he got his place in the team. And then he was also making decent saves. But again, because of Brighton, he wasn't actually needing to make loads of saves. So it's like that side of the game it was hard to sort of judge him on.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's sometimes difficult from a shot stopping perspective. It's hard to like shine as a goalkeeper.
I guess
and that's what most people look at.
Yeah, and the back end of De Zerbi's raid was particularly when he was conceding quite a lot of goals and people were really calling for him a lot. I remember De Zerbi getting actually quite a lot of stick for picking him quite a lot. And I was thinking, I'd probably guess that he knows a little bit more. And, you know, obviously with Verbruggen at the time, you see him now being quite inexperienced and making sort of immature mistakes. You can imagine him then, you know, obviously still very, very, very young as a goalkeeper. You think goalkeepers go to like 35, 40 years old. Like to be 22 playing in the Premier League, your ceiling is really, really high, but it might not even be reached for ages. You could be playing for another 5, 6, 7, 8 years without even really seeing the best of Bart Verbruggen, which is really hard to get your head around, I think, as a player of that sort of age. But yeah, particularly at the end of De Zerbi's time here. And actually, I see a lot of people say about that time at the moment. There's a lot of comparison at the moment because of how we've sort of been in bad form. And a lot of people like to say about De Zerbi's end of his reign being, you know, really, really bad. He got found out. I see a lot. I still don't buy into that at all. And I just, not that it matters anymore, but I like to think of myself as a bit of a myth buster in some sense. And I think when you look at De Zerbi's end of his reign, mate, we started against Bournemouth with literally pretty much an under-23 side. And I think the last month or two, you know, no discredit to any of these guys, but obviously Omani's now on loan at Portsmouth, for example. He was our main striker. We're relying on him to score some. You know, Ozela Fire. Not just I really like him. I'm sure he could have been a good player for us, but playing right back at that age, Valentin Barco's now been sold. You know, these were players that we were almost relying on at the back end of that season when we were getting wiped and hammered. And you think, you know, losing, as I say, our best players, and then you're holding on to Gilmore and Gross for muscle in midfield and playing a double pivot. It's like I still don't really buy into that, and I think that. I still, you know, he's doing all right in Marseille. I don't really agree with his tactics, his players there, but I think tactically he's doing really well. You know, I think he's one of the highest goal scorers out there.
I think
as well,
he'll always be a quality manager. His tactics, I think, are superb, and his style of play is superb. It's difficult. You're always going to compare. And people are like, oh yeah, the back end didn't end well, but look at the injuries and stuff he had.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you've got these players coming in that are now having to adapt to his very intense style, where you're put under heaps load of pressure at a very young age. It's like, of course they're going to get it wrong. So I think you got to understand that as well, and sort of he probably would have just sort of seen where the club sort of would have been at, and Europe probably wasn't achievable at that time, and he sort of just done what he was trying to do, and he's not going to change his style. That's his ethos. That's what he believes in. He's not just going to see the players. He's going to try and help them because he believes that's the right way to play football. It would have been wrong of him just to put these young kids in and completely change the style. That's not him. So obviously fans look at that, but that's their opinion. At the end of the day, I think you have to look at his time and sort of see what he'd done to the club, and it was pretty incredible. Yeah,
agree. I think I don't really get the comparison, to be honest, because I still think he's a top manager. I still think he would be a top manager in the Premier League.
He's a top European manager. It's why lots of big clubs
wanted him,
were interested in him.
I completely agree. But back onto the game, obviously against Chelsea, we play them twice in the week, so this could get really, really badly looked at this time next week. You know, if it does end up being Chelsea win the next game, everything can change. So I don't actually I want to stay humble. Right? I want to be Mikel Arteta putting on Kendrick Lamar after the game, right? I want to be really humble because I am fully aware of what could happen. Although it was very, very funny to see Cucurella twice falling over, and one of them was obviously leading to that goal with Karim Matoma, which was a fantastic moment and a brilliant finish from Matoma as well.
Well taken goal.
Definitely not handball on Tarek's part, although I think VAR might have had something to say.
Do you know what? When I saw it live, I was like, well, that's a handball. Not from Tarek, from Matoma.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because obviously where I sat again, he was miles away, and obviously his arms were in the air, and I was like, okay, they'll probably just give that a handball. And he didn't give it. And I'm like, oh, fair enough. And then I watched it back, and I'm like, okay, it's not a handball. And then I've seen Lamptey's, and I'm like, that is a handball. But it's so difficult because obviously the ruling is if it hits any part of your hand, it's not a goal. Obviously with there being no VAR, I sympathise a little bit with the ref because how quickly it's just hit off. He probably doesn't even realise it's hit the hand. I think, I do see why it wasn't given. But obviously if you're a Chelsea fan, or probably from a neutral perspective, you're going, how on earth is that being given? Because that's against the rules of the game. The rules are if it hits the hand. But there's no VAR. And I quite liked it. Personally, I quite like the fact there was no VAR. You didn't have to wait after the goal was scored. You're not waiting for 2 minutes. And obviously there's pros and cons. We're not going to get into that debate because we'll be here for ages. But it was quite nice to watch a game of football
without VAR.
I'm
so glad you said that. And I'm not going to get into the debate, but I'm just going to say I really enjoyed it without VAR as well. And it was quite nice to just watch a whole game through without all this controversy, checking over things and waiting. And also just knowing that once that goal was given, I could celebrate. I didn't have to think, this might get chalked off. This might get looked at. What if he's offside? What if his fingernails offside? You know what I mean? Those sort of things is when I really, really think I really hate VAR in the game. Don't get me wrong, I get it on the sense of, so I saw the Blackburn goal yesterday, for example. I think the guy was miles onside that scored. Obviously, unfortunately for him, really bad line of decision and giving that off. Off. But I don't know. I think for me, you look at the Leicester United one, I think that's just a really shocking decision.
I think this is the issue, right? Is now we've had this sort of weekend with no VAR, and there's been 3, 4, maybe more incidents where if VAR was in, it would have completely changed the game or the outcome of the game. So I think that's the only argument here, is that there's been quite a number of incidents where if the referees would have just got it right.
Does then look at? I know you can count for human error, but surely then you can start saying, I feel like.
But these are big ones. Yeah. Like these aren't little ones. Like even
the Birmingham, making their own decisions.
Even the Birmingham Newcastle one where it's like over the line. I'm not too sure, but there was that incident. Obviously the offside, the handball. It's kind of like these things. If VAR would have been in, would have just been chalked off. Yeah. And it was like Man United's goal was last minute, so that would have changed it. Brighton's one was to go 2-1, so that would have changed it. So all these clubs are going, what on earth? And the other thing I don't get is they say VAR comes in round 5? Yeah. And it's either in or it's not. Yeah. And I get why, because the FA Cup starts at non-league level. Yeah. They ain't gonna have VAR at blooming non-league game, are they? So I get that, but it's
just keep it out for the whole time.
Yeah, receiver just keep it out for the whole time.
Do you think?
I don't know if I'd call it unfair, because obviously everyone wants the right decision.
Yeah, but the rules change. But you effectively change the rules. You start with a certain rule set, and that's no VAR. Yeah. So that's decisions final. Whereas all of a sudden you get to say the big teams and you start playing the big games, and then all of a sudden,
well, it's because
it's a bit like that Coventry one.
Well, it's like more money and stuff gets involved. Like if you're on a final, and then all of a sudden one goal and it's not chalked up to the VAR. You go, well, we could have had it, and that could have made this club a certain amount of money. So money gets involved, obviously a lot higher you go up. It's involved from lower league rounds anyway, but obviously the higher, the more money. Yeah. So it's a difficult one. It's all opinion, but I don't really know what the right decision is to do. Maybe just get the decision right next time.
Yeah, agree.
Easier said than done. But
get the decision right. Yeah, just put your flag up. For God's sake, that's if you see it offside, put your flag up. If you don't
it's hard,
wait for the VAR to make the decision for you. I feel like that's what we've got to. It's now wait for VAR, and then I feel like Man United's one is almost a bit of that. I reckon he almost had a think of, I think he's off. Didn't put his flag up, almost thinking, oh my God. Back in the Premier League, don't have to put your flag up until late. It's going to get checked anyway.
I don't think that could be as an excuse, because obviously normally
I don't think it's an excuse, but they don't. I feel like they're not making their own decisions anymore.
No, true. So maybe they just lose a little bit of focus. It's really tough to get it right. I think it's really tough to get it right. I don't really know what the right thing is to do. I think when I do sympathise a little bit with the Linos, because by that much on the TV, they can go back and go back. And like, if you stick someone in that position, they got to call it. Don't get it wrong, the Man United one, I think you should give it. That's pretty obvious. Yeah. But I'm talking like the little ones. So it's tough. It's a tough job. It is a tough job. So I do sympathise a little bit with them.
Good job they get paid to do it then, isn't it?
I know, true. That's a valid point. It's a very valid point. So.
Anyway, let's get back to Chelsea again. Jorginho has really, really stamped his authority, I think, in that centre forward role, which a lot of Leeds fans like to say that he was not very clinical. He was the person that, had no end product, could be entertaining on his day, but never really turned up. I've seen the complete opposite of Jorginho this season. I think he's been entertaining in nearly every game I've watched him play. Yeah. Even in games where we've been up against it, he's always been the one to try and drive things forward. He's contributed to a lot of goals, he's now a top scorer. I think he could have had a few more as well. I don't think he's had, though, a great deal of chances where he's missed, and you look back and say, God, how has he not scored that? Yeah. I think he's settled really, really quickly here. He's got a really infectious attitude, as we all know. He's probably one of the most likeable signings we've made in ages. And for me, I think he's just one of those players and one of those people that you just absolutely love straight away. He's like one of them, he could be a legend, and you don't think anything about it. He's only 22, which is insane. I feel like he's got a massive, massive ceiling. And now that he's sort of got that finishing sorted out, I really do think his ceiling's high, because he can play really versatile up front, centre forward, left, right. He's come sort of a bit deeper at times. Played that 9.5, 10 role. I think he's got all the marks of being a false 9, of being a number 10 traditional. He can use both feet. Very, very quick as well, which is quite surprising. His size almost indicates he shouldn't be as quick as he probably is. Very skillful. I only have good things to say about Jorginho, and for me, the signing of the season, I think.
Yeah, I think I was really impressed. I was really impressed by him. And I think you're sort of spot on there. He's very versatile. Even the way he plays is very versatile. Sometimes he'll run in behind, he'll drop in, he'll get it to feet. His header, he can head it, he can finish with both feet. I was really impressed by his overall performance. I've been impressed with him all season, but it was just nice to see it live.
Yeah.
But yeah, he also has that character. Like he seems really hungry. And I think that time at Leeds, he was a big sign at Leeds. I think he was 40 mil, was it at Leeds?
Yeah.
And obviously it didn't really work out. And a lot of Leeds fans probably gave him a lot of stick.
Yeah.
So he's gone, right, actually, no, he's now proven a lot of people wrong. And I think he has. He's now obviously doing it in the Prem at Brighton. And yeah, I think he's showing his quality. And I was just really impressed by his whole performance. And also I said to you, the other two that really impressed me is Veltman, of course, but Minte. On the right, I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah.
And again, it's different when you see it live to on TV, but what he does off the ball as well, I think was fantastic. Like he was sort of playing in kind of like a wing-back sort of role, but then also bombing on. And he's rapid. Like he's frightening when he's going forward, but then he does his job defensively. And I was really impressed by the two of them and how they work together. And I think that's a really solid sort of partnership going down the right. And obviously, and Tarek also being involved.
Matoma as well.
Matoma.
It's great like forward line.
Them two wide areas work really well. So yeah, I was just really impressed by a lot of the boys. Jack as well, obviously, of course, going to shout. I think
Jack was fantastic.
He was fantastic in midfield. I was quite surprised when he took him off. I don't know whether he's feeling a bit leggy or he just wanted to freshen it up. But I thought he was fantastic, picking up pockets, getting on the half turn, receiving the ball in dangerous areas, putting tackles in. I was impressed.
He plays way above his years. I think he's really, I don't know how to explain it. He's like he's not a mini Gross, because obviously not that chance creator, but I don't know, he's got the composure of Gross. You can tell he's been in and around, the senior leaders at Brighton for a long time. You can tell he's probably
You're seeing a slightly different role. I think you're seeing a slightly different role to last season, because he was kind of playing that like inverted fullback type role under De Zerbi, so he was having more final third entries, so then late arrivals into the box. He was having more of that, which we didn't necessarily see against Chelsea. But then what he did do was that really mature side of breaking up play and then getting it in dangerous areas, picking it up in pockets, and then starting attacks. So I think it shows again his versatility and what he can do in terms of different positions. And like when we spoke about before on the podcast, is he's very switched on. He's very game aware.
You call him a genius.
Yeah, you can put him in many positions and he'll know exactly what to do. So yeah, I think there was a lot of boys that played very well and were very solid, and it was nice to see live as well, because when you watch on TV, it's sort of just panning to where the ball is. So it's nice to see what they're doing off the ball as well.
Yeah, I agree. No, Hinchwood deserves a lot, because especially after what he had to go through last week, and that wasn't his fault. He was completely misprofiled, and he was given that role, which was never, ever going to work. And that's why I was so angry last week, because it was like I saw the team, I thought, really? And I just thought, seriously, if you're giving him a Langer and Gibbs-White to deal with on his own pretty much, I thought, my gosh, Hinchwood could be on his best game and struggle to deal with that, because they're superb players, and he's so naive as such a young player. But then when you see him around that, that core of players like Carlos Baleba, now he's becoming that, I would say first name on a team sheet pretty much. He's been given that extra bit of, padding around him, if you like, and you see it, as you say, very, very mature performance, nowhere near sort of Bambi in the headlights type thing. You don't have to worry about that. And I think I think he deserves a lot of credit for not only that, but bouncing back after sort of being given the task of death, really, wasn't it?
Well, him and Carlos were fantastic, I think, in that midfield. And what a midfield that is, like how young they are as well. Thinking about, you've got those two as your midfielders. But they don't look inexperienced. They look like proper midfielders that can hold their own. And got a great team. Yeah, you do have a fantastic team, but also a very young team. So I think the club are just looking at it going, all right, sweet. We've either got a team here that are going to progress on with a few years to come. I think the centre back probably role is where you might need one more slightly younger, or maybe a fullback when Beltman goes on a little bit.
You've not seen him yet. Can't say too much for him. But as well on the midfield, just while you're on it, is Diego Gomez. I thought
he was good when he came on.
Really good. And it's probably the most we've seen of him so far. He admitted to being a little bit settling in period, I guess you could call it. He struggled a little bit coming over.
It because especially in the MLS, it's a very different. Yeah. I've watched quite a few MLS games. It's a very different way of football compared to over here. So I thought when he come on again, I was really impressed. But he was also getting stuck in. He was physical, and I think it was. Again,
you think of the culture shock coming from Miami as well. You know, it's a completely different place. You know, so literally the other side of the world, coming over here and then adapting to life here. It's very cold. It's very wet. It's very dark. And also, playing in the Premier League
and the style. You think at Inter Miami, they've got their superstars, and to be honest, their football relates to their superstars when they're training. It'll be about their superstars. Their games will be, let's get our superstars on the ball. Whereas you're coming over to a Brighton side, which is very dependent on the whole team and the structure. So it's very different. So, But again, you seemed like when he come on, he didn't look out of place.
Do you know what he gave me vibes of? I put a tweet on of it. He looked like a little mini McAllister of when McAllister first came through.
That's a tough one to say.
Do you know why I say it? I remember when McAllister first came over from Argentina in that January window, we recalled him and we bid ourselves out of the loan just to get him back because we really liked him.
Yeah.
And he was very weak. He was not ready for the Premier League. But you could just see him just creating space. He always had like a little 5-yard radius around him. And he was just drifting in between spaces, in between little pockets, just walking around. He didn't have to run too much. And that's what Gomez did really well. He had that tackle in him, a bit like how Alexis did. His passing range looked quite nice. His little flicks, little touches were all really, really good. Don't want to put, obviously, loads of pressure on the kid.
Of course.
But again, it gave me that sort of vibe of a midfielder that I haven't seen at Brighton since McAllister went. And I remember when McAllister went, I said, that's one thing that's going to be really, really difficult to replace is that ability to just float and just drift and just have that aura about you where you know what's around you, that whole radius around you at all times. And I thought that was really, really bright to see from Diego Gomez. And I spoke to a couple of Paraguayan outlets as well, and shout out to Roberto, he's a top guy, Roberto Royes, and he thinks the same. He said that one thing you need to know about Diego Gomez is he's a very down to earth sort of guy. He doesn't get too ahead of himself. He'll be a bit of a hard worker, and that's really good to hear. You know, he's not going to be one of them that's gets a bit carried away. Not to say any other Paraguayans that got carried away that are now on loan, but could have maybe done so much better.
I think they all
and that's what we like to hear.
A lot of the South Americans, I think a lot of them come over and they do work hard. Obviously, you get the odd few, but I think when they come over, especially come over to Brighton, McAllister, Argentinian, João Pedro, Brazilian, Paraguayan, they're all come over and they all work really hard. I think that's just from where they come from. So I think you'll always get that. They always want to get stuck in. I think he does look like a really good signing. And it was sort of good to see that sort of adjustment sort of phase. Sometimes it can take players quite a while, but I don't think it will with him. So,
No, he does look a touch of class. I hope he does. Because they say that midfield you've got there with Hinchelwood, with Baleba, with him. Obviously, Matt Sweefer's been out quite a fair bit, but you got a really, really strong
O'Reilly,
depth. O'Reilly's been the one that struggled a little bit. Not to dig him out too much. I mean, I think
it's tough though because the boys have been playing really well.
But that injury as well for him.
Yeah, it's not the best of starts.
Instead, he's felt it. I think. He looks a little bit unsure, a little bit lack of confidence.
And it's tough to get into the side when you got them boys that are playing really well, and now obviously they've had a Gomez who's now going to strengthen that midfield even more. It's even tougher to get into the side. But I think all he can keep doing is working hard and keep pushing to get into the side. And when he gets minutes, is showing what he can do. So it's tough. But
it is tough.
That's the problems you have when you're trying to be a top 10, top 5 Premier League side. Is you need that squad depth. You can't please everyone.
Is it good to have the competition in the squad? You know, 100%. As much as you say,
100%,
it's tough. Like we were saying about Verbruggen earlier, you know, but it's Rushworth's opportunity. You know, that sort of thing. Yeah. You know, as much as you don't want anyone to replace you, but having that constant drive of thinking, if I mess up again, you know, he could be around the door.
It goes one of two ways. I think it's like you don't want to add too much pressure. It's like, well, if you mess up, you're gone. I don't.
Becomes toxic.
Some players play really well under that, but it's about knowing your player. Some players like to be like, okay, actually, I need to keep on my toes because otherwise there's this guy behind me who's doing well and he might get a chance. So it's important to have that competition. It's always important to have competition because otherwise you can get complacent. But I think with each player, it's managing that. I think some players would love that. Be like, look, if you're not performing, if you make mistakes again, you're getting dropped. I think some players will step up, and then some might go into a shell. So it's all about understanding the player, I think, at that point. But yeah, so I think it's always important to have competition. One, because you need backup options with injuries and stuff like that. And two, I think it keeps players on their toes. It makes them turn up to training. It makes them want to work hard, and they push each other on. And I think at the end of the day, players need to remember, and we all do it, but they need to remember you're all a team together. You'll all succeed together. It's not like an individual sport where it's a tennis player. It's me versus you. You're all together. And it's tough sometimes with football. Of course, there's only 11 players that can play. And if you're a midfielder and there's a midfielder ahead of you, you're looking at him and go, how can I be better than him? But also, he's your teammate. Yeah. So you've got to try and push each other on, because that's how the club's going to succeed as a whole. So it's tough. There's that individual side, but you also need to remember it's that team element.
Yeah. So, yeah. No, I agree. I think that you definitely saw that exact thing, is team play. And you could see it a lot with Mitoma's celebration. When he scored, he looked really happy. Yeah. Really happy. Yeah. I don't normally see Mitoma smile so much, actually. And it's making me smile thinking about it. He obviously had that big offer from Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Massive commendable respect to him for turning down that offer, because my God, I don't think there's many people that would be able to turn down that sort of money, regardless of ethics, right? You say what you want. If you've offered that sort of money, I'm surprised that a lot of people wouldn't say even for a year. And I think when you look at Mitoma as someone that, you know, didn't want to go into the professional game when he was only 19, he wanted to stay in uni, all that sort of jazz with him, and then goes to the Premier League quite late. You know, you look at someone like Jamie Vardy, for example, or Ian Wright, even to go back, you know, the late bloomers, so to speak. I think Riyad Mahrez was similar. Took him, you know, I think he was only like 19, 20 before he even played professionally. It's crazy. But sometimes if you've just got that ability and that, as you say, that know-how, you see it with Hinchwood, as you said before, but I think Mitoma, one, he deserved his goal because he took it really well, as we said before, but actually overall I thought he was a lot more electric. I think you see a lot more of what Mitoma can do. As I always say, I still think he's underrated in the grand scheme of football. I don't think people appreciate how good he is. Okay, we haven't seen always the best of him because he gets like tripled up on every week. But as you say, when you've got someone like Minty on the other side now, it gives him a little bit more of a chance to be what Karim Mitoma can be. But no, for the whole aspect of him staying here and wanting to be here and then doing a similar sort of moment like he did against Liverpool a couple of years ago when he scored that goal against you know, that Diego Gomez, leaved him. That was fun. That was a great moment. That was.
Sure it was.
Sorry, Toby. But again, proving that he can be that guy to carry you out of a bad moment, and proving that he can be that guy to just be Brighton, you know?
Yeah, I think he has that sort of mindset. I think he just wants to play at the sort of highest level possible. I think he's like that Saudi sort of offer it was really weird. It kind of just came out of nowhere.
It did, yeah.
But I think
I was so worried for about half an hour.
No, I think just based on his character and what he's like as a person, I think he would have just seen it and would have been like, no. And I think that's just probably how it would have gone. Obviously, I don't know, but it just seemed like he just wouldn't have been fazed by it. I don't think he seems too worried about money. He earns very good money anyway, and I think he just wants to play good level football, and he wants to show people what he can do. And I think he also sees it as a challenge. He wants to challenge himself. I think he enjoys when he comes up against tough opponents. He's like, right, how am I going to beat them 1v1? Whereas if he goes to the Saudi League, I haven't really watched it, but I think we all sort of know it's going to be nowhere near the level of the Premier League. Money's great, but I think he doesn't seem fussed by that. He just wants to challenge himself. And it's probably one of few that have already been turned down that sort of offer.
Very, very commendable. Final thing, can Brighton win the FA Cup, Toby?
Oh, wow.
Have that drink.
I don't see why not. I mean, you've got a fantastic squad. I don't see why not. I think
Chelsea, Liverpool, Arsenal, all out.
Yeah, they're all out. Cheers.
Plymouth as well. God, how embarrassing.
I know, mental. That's another. I
could
talk about that for ages. When I saw that squad, I was like, I'm actually slightly worried. But that's moving on. I think why not? I don't see why they couldn't win it. I think they've got a good chance. They've got a really good squad. They have a really good squad. I think it would just be interesting when they get to or if they get to the semi-final or final, how that looks. A lot of the players are still quite young.
Yeah.
yes, Brighton have been there before, but it's a very different squad
Yeah.
to what it was. So yeah, I don't see why not. Obviously, there's still a way to go, and there's still a few decent sides in there. But like you say, Arsenal out, Chelsea out, Liverpool out.
My unpopular opinion, when I look at the teams around that will want it, obviously I think like Newcastle are going to really want it, but they're focusing on Carabao Cup at the moment, and don't blame them. And I think when you look at the squad that we've got, when you compare like a Villa, for example, who obviously have a great squad, but then they want Champions League to be their priority. They're going to want to sort of get their status in the Premier League pretty high up. I think if we just focus on the FA Cup, I think we've got one of the best squads of all of them players to balance out there, really, that are left in that competition. I think if we can rotate as much as we want, really. I think, and we've still got good players to bring on, as we've said before. Manchester City, obviously, Manchester United could maybe be the cup run team that, where their league is going so bad.
Obviously, I know they're in Champions League, but I watched their game against Tottenham.
They're right up for it, weren't they?
And wow, the squad depth as well. Obviously, the players they've just brought in, I'm like, okay, they look quite scary.
Asensio,
they do look quite scary.
Yeah, Marlon's another one.
I think the only thing that
Rashford
not lets them down, but I think defensively maybe. But then they've got that bit of experience with Martinez back there. But yeah, I don't know. Villa, to me, probably they'll definitely fancy it. Looking at the sides left, of course they'll fancy it, but their focus, of course, will probably be Champions League.
Yeah, I agree.
It's going to be, but you don't know when they might go out. Or same with the Carabao Cup with Newcastle and Liverpool. That game is a month or so away. I'm not too sure. So it all depends on how it looks and when the next round is. I'm not too sure when it is, but yeah, depending on who you draw, I reckon Brighton should be going, we really back ourselves to get into the semis, but it's the FA Cup, so it all depends on the draw.
Toby, absolute pleasure, mate.
Yeah,
you need to run.
Am I late?
You're not quite late.
No,
You'll be all right. You'll be fine. Make sure you follow Toby. There'll be plenty of stuff with me and Toby actually soon, so we'll see. I don't know what it's going to be yet. Some TSR content maybe very soon. But yeah, make sure you follow him. Make sure you come down to Caxton Arms. Chelsea again. I don't want to get too carried away, as you can tell, but Kukurea, if you could do that sort of performance again, my friend, you'll be a Brighton legend forever. Make sure you come down here. Get in the links below. And goodbye.